Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone today to the nexVortex webinar entitled Future-Proof Communications for ShoreTel and MiVoice Connect. I want to thank everyone for taking the time today. So a couple little housekeeping things. My name is Nate. I'm the co-host today. If you have questions during the webinar, just go ahead and use the Q&A functionality within the web environment. We'll try to address as many of those at the end. We will have an open Q&A. If we don't get to that, we will follow up with you via email and make sure we get your questions answered. We are going to have a very popular topic that we're having right now. We'll be having these every couple of weeks as well. We are recording the webinar, so if you have somebody else in your organization or somebody else you want to pass this along, we will have a recording or something that you want to review as well. So if you have any issues, you can also use the chat functionality and just send me a note to the SIP username. I'm happy to try to help as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it around to our speaker today. Mike, take it away.
Well, thank you, Nate, and thank you for everyone that has joined us today. I'll be your presenter here over the next 20-25 minutes as we take this journey on future-proof communications for your MiVoice Connect or ShoreTel series system. My background has always been in technical sales. I consider myself someone that likes to provide education to our clients and business partners, and have extensive experience in SIP trunking services dating back to 2007. So I will try to take you through a very efficient journey here on future-proof communications for the Mitel or ShoreTel series system. And I would appreciate any questions that you have along the way. As Nate said, please use the chat function and we'll address them at the end. The agenda that I thought would be most appropriate is to do a brief introduction on nexVortex so you know how we address things and how we've been set up. And then dive into the interoperability pieces and the capabilities that you have from an application side and some use cases. And then we'll talk about implementation and planning and how folks implement nexVortex services for their current systems and beyond. And so with that being said, why don't we quickly get into a quick brief introduction into nexVortex. So I think the first and foremost item on the list is financial stability. nexVortex is a SIP specialty company. That is its focus from the very, very beginning. This is not a company that started off in a different direction. From its inception, its mission was to provide SIP trunking services to businesses, especially multi-site businesses. And that has allowed it to get deep technical information out to our customers and design the right solutions that they need. And that allows you to satisfy your customers, allows you to the ability to execute. And as a result, you see all kinds of awards, visionary awards, and fast growth awards, such as the Inc. 5000, 10 years in a row. Very rare company to have done that. So from a credibility perspective, I think you'll find that and find merit to the content we're going to present. 2020 has been a year of pronunciation of the different challenges that organizations face when they move to a distributed workforce, a work from home workforce. We've seen all kinds of challenges across the board. Some of them, of course, though, is managing your mobile employees, again, as they're moving back and forth, addressing Karis Law 911 services for multiple locations and work from home applications, usage demands, change within the organization. So these are all things that we're faced with the dramatic changes of 2020. And what it has done is it really has brought to light some of the significant drawbacks of using legacy services. And as folks try to make these changes and be flexible for their staff, and they look at their current PRI or legacy SIP trunking services or analog services, they recognize that they need to make some changes. And the change that they need to make, not necessarily just for today, but what does the future look like in a year or a couple years from now as they evolve. A lot of organizations are looking for cost savings, as you can imagine. They're also looking to reduce the risk. when they do make a change to their connectivity, they have to make a strategic decision here, and a well thought out decision. We find a lot of organizations looking to incorporate multiple platforms into their mix. So they have their Mitel MiVoice system, but they may want to incorporate Microsoft Teams into that as well for some of their users. And so that complicates things a bit. But all in all, when they start to look at their connectivity and what they have today, the recognition that traditional services such as legacy SIP trunking and PRI services just do not scale well to this new world. If you think about a lot of the technologies, or a lot of the telephony services that were out, they were based on applications from 50 years ago. The ability to make and receive phone calls has dramatically shifted, especially in today's world. So again, a lot of today's conversation is about enabling your Mitel and enabling your organization to be future-proof. And what you see under the covers with nexVortex, because we own, operate, and develop our own call processing, billing platform, and portal tools, we can interop test with almost anyone. Furthermore, we can make adjustments if needed, and we can build out custom packages for what the world needs, whether it's enabling a system with PRI handoff today, but quickly allowing you to get into something like Microsoft Teams, or augmenting your solution with a UCaaS service for some users. But you're positioned with a nexVortex where you can do a lot of things and have a lot of movement, and you take the risk out of the equation of what's going to happen in the next year or two, especially if you are doing some platform migration. Why don't we talk about the interoperability piece of SIP trunking services and how you would interop with nexVortex with an existing ShoreTel system or MiVoice Connect. And then we can, of course, talk about adding other platforms into the mix if you're interested. First and foremost, again, because we own, operate, develop call processing here, and that's what we do, that's our specialty, we have forged relationships with some outstanding companies, including Mitel, including a lot of the brands you see here on the screen. We work with their labs, we test with them, we go through the certification processes, we document, we provide the documentation to our customers and our portals and our business partners to make it efficient. Our CE and support teams are trained on the different platforms that we interop with. So there's expertise there, know-how, especially with different applications and functions that these systems do. At the very bottom of the screen, you'll see SBC gateways. These are commonly used, overwhelmingly used, I should say, in a MiVoice Connect environment. And you'll find how nexVortex provides these, pre-configures them, arms and alarms them for monitoring. But this is part of the interop story and allows you to connect in a managed service way from the provider with full visibility. So the interoperability, especially if you were going to change a platform, is extensive and very solid, with solid ability to execute. When you have a Mitel system or a ShoreTel system and you want to connect SIP trunking services, you will need a SBC gateway. This is a requirement from ShoreTel and MiVoice Connect systems. Those systems historically had recommend using an in-gate separator or an AdTran SBC. Those are certified in the Mitel world for full interoperability to gain SIP access. These session border controllers are sometimes provided to the customer, or you yourself as the customer, from a business partner or sourced after the fact. In nexVortex's case, if you have an in-gate separator, we can connect natively to that. We've gone through the certification process there years ago. If you have an existing AdTran, we can interop with it. Overwhelmingly, our customers come to us and ask us to provide the managed AdTran SBC for interoperability. If there's PRI connectivity today and there's PRI cards already installed, we do offer where we can hand off PRI services from those SBCs if needed, and that is not uncommon. So you do need to address the session border controller piece. nexVortex provides the AdTran service if you don't have it included with the service packages. The other thing about the service is it's very flexible. Whether you're on-premise today or going virtual in the future, or using virtual platforms in some way in your organization. The SIP trunks that nexVortex provides are unique in that they can be shared amongst multiple platforms, and including the ability to focus all SIP resources to on-premise and fail over to a virtual environment, or share them simultaneously. It's very easy to do and a common application for our customers, even if you did an acquisition and acquire a third-party platform or add in another Mitel MiVoice Connect somewhere else. So very a flexible service in that regard. And that leads us into the conversation of cost savings for an organization, especially if you have multiple locations. This is what we spend a lot of our day on, is doing design work, helping our business partners and customers design the right solution for their needs. The first thing what we find is a lot of organizations have multiple phone systems installed. They have connectivity designated to those phone systems. So if you think about that, they're paying for services that they're not utilizing. They're buying max capacity in almost all cases. So as they have multiple locations and multiple systems, they have PRI services, they're not using a fraction of it. However, if they want to scale one of the locations, they can't easily borrow the resources from the site that's not being utilized. Tremendous underutilization waste exists. We also find a number of the SIP providers are unable to share resources with multiple platforms. They require you to buy separate accounts. And I think a lot of this stems from they don't know how to bill for it or manage that, because they have outsourced systems. So this is a big problem in the industry. There's a lot of waste here. The other things you find is disaster recovery capabilities are very limited, especially in a PRI or a legacy SIP environment. And the 911 zoning for multiple offices or work for home applications is very tough. So these are all challenges that are out there. And as we mentioned earlier, the ability to dynamically share trunk lines across multiple MiVoice Connect systems or ShoreTel systems, or even maybe the Avaya system you acquired, is easily done with the dynamic nature of the SIP trunks nexVortex provides. So you never have to designate a given amount of trunk lines for a site. You simply decide how many SIP trunk subscriptions you want to use for your entire organization, whether it's the same platform or different ones. It cuts down on the underutilization the waste really, and allows you to utilize what you really need and pay for that. So this is a big hit for our customers for scaling and also cost savings. The other piece of this is the inherent disaster recovery capabilities that comes with the service. And I will get into that here in just a second. This just gives you another image of just showing that if you want to incorporate another system or another platform, easily done. So let's get back to the disaster recovery thought here. So what happens is that if all calls are coming in to your main location for your toll-free service and your location disappears, you have a power failure, system down, access issue, ice storm, what have you, as real time as the calls are coming in, through the nexVortex SIP trunking logic, we would see in real time that MiVoice Connect is not communicating with us and rejecting the messages. We then invoke your rule set that you've preset during the provisioning process to say, in the event the primary system's gone, fail to another IP address in a dual WAN configuration at the site, or fail to another MiVoice Connect at another part of the country. In real time, as the calls are coming in, if they can't be reached, they can fail to other systems. If those systems are gone, it'll fail to other systems. And if those are gone, they can fail to cell phones or what have you. Every DID and toll-free number that a customer owns can have preset rules, and they can all be different. This is something that we built out very early on, because if you're going to do something like this, if you are reliant on the public internet and there's an issue, you must have some recourse, some ability to see that in real time and route around it and not impact your customers. And that's why we built this tool many, many years ago, tied into the SIP logic so it's real time. All of this is preset during the provisioning process and can be changed anytime you or your staff want to through the portal. So this is available to all of our customers. We also allow our business partners to access this tool to help our customers if they're making migrations to help them route around and keep their calls up. So this is an included service. We think it's critical to the application. The other piece is when you're deploying 911 services, and if you have a PRI service, you can have a lot of challenges, especially if you have work from home employees. Those folks to have local 911 for the Ray-Baum Act and Karis Law compliance, this is tough, this is difficult. And so folks come to us and they say, we need to be in compliance. We need granular 911 services, and we expect you as the service provider to provide it. And that's really what we're built for. And so what you see is if you have a school system, if you have a healthcare network, what have you, and you need granular 911 services, this is part of the nexVortex packaging. In this example, it shows that it's a street address, but it's showing a room number. And that all of that information is very important for Karis Law compliance, especially of large buildings, to pinpoint classroom level or suite level or portion of the building and have that relayed to the PSAP and then know who you are. Again, that is something that you can easily do with the nexVortex services through your Mitel MiVoice Connect or ShoreTel system. It really looks like this. This is the portal tools that we have. It may be a bit hard to see here, but you can see the addresses and the suite level or the classroom level, etc. Those will all be your emergency response locations. So you have a visual tool to see them to make sure that you've entered them incorrectly. If you don't know how to do this, no problem. We do this all day long. Our provisioning staff will ask, can we help you build this out? Once you have all your emergency response locations for those home users or different floors of your building, the ELIN numbers or emergency numbers that are tied into the databases can be dragged and dropped over to the location. Many of the service providers with outdated technology will require that you have an enhanced DID for each and every one of these locations. And that can be very costly, especially when you open up your phone bill and you see all the emergency response recovery fees that can be $1 up to $2 a site we've seen on some of the bills. And it's an uncomfortable experience, especially if a service provider recommended that group and they charge those back-end fees. With this system here, you pay for the emergency response locations, not the ELINs that are tied to them. And so that makes a big difference in billing and rollout. And the best part of it all, I think, is you can test it for accuracy by dialing 311 or 933 from any Mitel MiVoice Connect system. So that's a nice tool that we include for all of our nexVortex customers. And again, we can go into this in more detail after the fact if you like, but at a high level, what we're doing is we're managing those ELINs tied to the emergency response locations and routing them appropriately. If we're using products like Mitel MiVoice or Mitel Revolution for mass notification, this service that we have ties in great with it, again, because we're ELIN driven on it, and it ties in, especially if we get a command response from a Mitel system saying that it needs to invoke 911, it's calling from a specific location, that can be all mapped together. So I think we've got a new one covered from a 911 Karis Law perspective. In terms of the network architecture of MSIP as the foundation for what folks use for their MiVoice Connect systems, you probably want to know the geographic positioning of nexVortex and how the network works. At a high level, you'll see multiple service nodes scattered across the United States. These service nodes are all active, meaning if one is down, you would notice it because the other ones are active and can handle the call processing. The other thing that you'll notice is that you'll see a various amount of different ISP providers on the left part of the screen. These ISP providers provide peering points for our customers. So if you use nexVortex, in many cases, you'll use us over your existing internet providers. If you use one of the providers you see here on the left, you'll really run those carriers to our carriers, which are the same and you'll ride right through our ingress egress points that are using Verizon, AT&T, Cogent, etc. That provides a low latency, low traffic, low packet loss environment for you to get your calls from your site to nexVortex call processing. This architecture resembles SD-WAN. A lot of people think it's an SD-WAN network, which it really resembles. The difference is this is specifically designed and built from ground up for real-time call processing. It's a specialized SD-WAN network that we offer our customers, all managed with high visibility for you. Taking it a step further, another piece of the equation is you have what you put in front of your MiVoice Connect, which is an AdTran supported for full interoperability SBC. So these are provided by nexVortex, pre-configured for your Mitel. These systems will be monitored, armed, and alarmed. If ever you see one disappear, we get a proactive notification for you. Furthermore, we have all kinds of settings we use at the SBC level to detect latency issues and other things to even initiate a dual WAN failover sequence. These systems can also be configured to do PRI handoff if needed, but they're part of the equation. They sit in the environment in front of the Mitel system, and that allows a high quality delivery point with visibility up to that edge device. The SD-WAN or the dual WAN component we talked about earlier looks like this. You can put two existing ISPs into the equation. If one disappears or has issues, we can fail over to the other for call processing and deliver the calls right to that ShoreTel or MiVoice Connect. This can be set up as a load balancing situation or simply recognize if one circuit's down, move over. So we do this all preset during the kickoff call and provisioning process, customized to each customer that's doing the deployment. Furthermore, from a visibility perspective, because of the history and because we build, own, operate, and develop here, we have access to every SIP trace of every phone call you make. And if you haven't seen a SIP trace, it looks like this. It's really the DNA of every phone call that you make, or the fingerprint on every phone call you make. And as a provider with these advanced tools, we can see all kinds of things, such as the IP address you're using, signaling port of the firewall, methods the phone system supports, all kinds of stuff. This is an awesome troubleshooting tool if you ever run into issues. Furthermore, we can see this in real time, and if we need to make adjustments, we can. But if you ever call into nexVortex support, this is one of the tools that we use, is to pull up a SIP trace for a given call to analyze and identify where issues happen. And a lot of times our group will give this to you if you want it. And that way, if you know how to read SIP traces, you can have at it. We'll provide it for you. The best part of it is our team knows how to use it and how to help you troubleshoot. You're taking it a step further. When you use the nexVortex MSIP environment with our cloud-based SBCs and provided AdTran SBCs on premise, and then you build in sensors throughout the entire process to measure call quality, you can pinpoint any issues if they ever happen. Those issues could happen inside your network at your office. It could also happen between you and nexVortex, or actually in the nexVortex network. If that ever happened, to have visibility to know where it is and know what actions are needed to correct it are very powerful, especially if you're going to use multiple ISPs for your call delivery. So this is custom nexVortex build out to monitor and measure every aspect of every call that you make, all the way up to your provided SBC in front of your MiVoice Connect. You'll have all kinds of reports if you need them. I think they're very neat to have. Most of our customers don't necessarily dive into them. If they have an issue, they have comfort knowing we have access to them and can see what's happening with your calls if there is an issue. There is all kinds of reports in here: latency reports, packet loss reports, time of day reports, things like that on your call statistics, and some really easy to use graphs if you ever have a problem. One of the things that you'll see in the top right box is you'll see 4 call quality scores in green there. I'm sorry, 6 call quality scores. There's actually 6 call quality scores taken for every phone call you make, and they're taken at all different aspects of the call path. That allows us to pinpoint where an issue exists. Again, they're in your portal. You don't have to use them. I think the best part of it is the nexVortex NOC has access to this for you. So when deploying MSIP with a MiVoice Connect or ShoreTel system, the first thing you got to have is you're going to get an AdTran SBC from nexVortex. Now, the exception would be is if you had your own SBC or Engate separator. If you're using MSIP, you're always going to get that blue AdTran system from us pre-configured as far as part of the package. So no capital expenses at all for that. On the right side of the equation is the nexVortex network. This is, again, similar to an SD-WAN type network built for voice services. How do you connect the two? You can use any internet connection you want. As long as you meet certain latency, packet loss, jitter specs and have enough upload and download speed, you can use anything you want. This is a similar design to other providers, but with the benefits of all the visibility, ISP peering, and all the other stuff that we do on the back end. So even if you're not on net with one of our peers, you're probably very close. It is nicer if you have one of the peering connections that we talked about. So that would mean you have an AT&T circuit or a CenturyLink or a Verizon and ISP in today. That would allow you to stay really on net, sending your calls right into us over the same ISP. And if you like, we can also bring out a circuit to your premises with class of service on it. These are internet access connections that give you all the flexibility of movement there, and you can use it for data applications, but it gives you class of service voice prioritization end to end on those circuits to nexVortex call processing. So that gives you the scenarios, and you can also mix and match. You can have some sites with circuits provided by nexVortex, some over the top, and again, a mixture of both, even in a dual WAN design. Very common. So when you look at the deployment, over the top, over the existing internet infrastructure you have is extremely common. If you want a dual WAN connection, you simply add it into the mix. We're leveraging the network with all the peering connections. And again, you can have a mix and match with nexVortex provided circuits or your own. I will say overwhelmingly, folks do use their own existing ISPs in the deployment mix. Pre-sales, our sales engineering team will ask to try to help, try to make sure that we have the right recommendation. One of the things that we'll look at is what is the broadband burn per concurrent call. You'll see the chart at the bottom right. 10 concurrent call paths would burn, or I'm sorry, 100 concurrent call paths would burn approximately 10 meg of broadband. So we would size things accordingly and make recommendations for you pre-sales when working through the process. So in summary, when designing your solution and factoring in flexibility for the future, you can take advantage of many of the things that you see here today. So the interoperability with your MiVoice Connect and future systems is there. The network redundancy built for modern day communications is there. Definitive troubleshooting capabilities, the trunk sharing, which is very important, especially if multiple systems and need failover services, the disaster recovery and the 911 zoning, all part of the solution as standard. So when it comes time to implement this, I thought it would be nice just to show you a couple quick diagrams so you know what it looks like from a finite perspective. In the process, folks do pick a design. They pick how do they want that AdTran SBC to sit in front of their MiVoice Connect or ShoreTel system. Now, they'll be designed one of two ways. They'll either be designed for native SIP handoff or PRI or mini PRI handoff. It's up to our customers to tell us how they would like it set up. We'll build out the proposal to suit, and folks can change if they need to along the way. So the big part of the first step, I should say, is designing, picking the design you like the best for your environment. I will tell you from a Mitel MiVoice perspective, most will choose this design here. Again, we're happy to provide this to anyone on this call if they're interested in looking at these diagrams in more detail. Another piece of the equation is timeline. How long does it take to do this? And what kind of help do you get? The provisioning process is key, especially if you're porting numbers, doing multi-site rollouts, 911 zoning, or hybrid environments. You have to have the support you need. And we just can't afford to do this with gotchas or issues along the way. So we try to do a lot of work up front to make sure they're designed correctly. And then we assign a project coordinator for the duration of the project. You'll see here different intervals of what's happening and the timeline. MSIP deploys in about 7 days. Very quick. The heavy lift making your design. Number porting is usually 7 to 10 days. So it can be very fast. There is some planning that you have to do up front. If you're doing an extensive rollout, it's always best for our customers to assign a project manager on their side. And so we can work together to get through things. But it's a well-documented process, and our ability to execute on this is 5-star. How we do so well at it is the time, dedication, and prep work up front. Not a typical telecom experience. Pre-sales, we like to do Visio diagrams. We like to make sure that we understand your environment, and we also ask, what's going to change in 6 months, a year from now? Are you adding any new systems? Are you planning anything that we should be aware of? That allows us to get the design right, make recommendations on the circuits if needed, etc. So all this is documented. You'll usually see a nexVortex proposal with Visio diagrams in them. Those are also very helpful to provide to our support group, so they know what they're dealing with if you ever call in, because all customer environments can be different. So this is a nice thing that we do, and you'll expect to see this in the pre-sales process from nexVortex. We also highly encourage folks to see a demo of the portal and the tools, invite their team. Let's make sure everything's ironed out. So again, this is part of the process, and you'll see an executive type proposal, step by step, of what's needed, start of service, billing, etc., all documented. So I think, Nate, we try to keep this to a half hour. We're about that timeline. In summary, I would just say that what you've seen here is, I'd say, an advanced service. The ability to execute is 5-star on it. If you have a Mitel MiVoice Connect, and you're looking to give yourself flexibility in the future and hopefully save some costs, pick up some stuff, I think you've seen that here today. Nate, if there's any questions, I'd be thrilled to answer them.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we do have a few questions here. Real quick, before folks get into the Q&A session, I'm going to go ahead and just throw up a quick poll on this end. Just makes it real easy for folks. If you want somebody to reach out from nexVortex, just go ahead and click yes or no. I'll leave this up for about 10 seconds. And then we'll jump right into the Q&A. Well, actually, we can go ahead and start with the Q&A while the poll's up, Mike, if that works for you.
Okay.
So we had, I don't know, 6 or 7 questions come in. A couple of them were pretty similar. Microsoft Teams, that was a kind of a theme here. So what is required to use your SIP services with MS Teams?
Yeah, that's a good one. So if you're going to use Microsoft Teams phone system, and I'll be high level here, you have to have the Microsoft Teams phone system licenses. That's the first piece of it. You got to have the licenses. We can always go into more detail there if you like. But the SIP trunks you have here are ready. They're Teams ready. You either have to provide your own SBC, usually an Azure-based SBC. Some organizations, like the Department of Defense, commonly will do that on their own. Others will come to nexVortex and add in a hosted SBC that's certified for Microsoft Teams. So that's easily added a few dollars a user if you want to incorporate them into it. But it starts with, do you have the right Microsoft phone system licenses? We coach folks through it all the time.
Okay. So I think you touched on this, but a couple people did ask, how long does it take to install your service if a circuit is needed?
So yeah, I guess we talked earlier about the 7 to 10 days, Nate, is typically if you use your existing circuits, which most folks do. We bring a circuit out, it will be an Ethernet type circuit with class of service. Depends on the market. A lot of times they're about 35 to 40-day deployment today. We are a AT&T Apex Platinum provider. That does give us some advantages, and our AT&T is commonly who we use for our delivery with the class of service component. I would say plan 35 to 40 days currently. As we get into the holidays, that will probably extend out maybe up to 60 days. But always best to chat with us where you're located, and we can give you a better idea up front.
Okay. I think we got time for one more. A couple of questions on fax. Can you route fax over your MSIP service?
You can. You can do it, Nate, but it's not guaranteed. It still is SIP trunking, and fax is not a native SIP service. It was born out of the analog world. We built out things like T38 and G711 pass-through. But even that being said, we would advise our clients and business partners to be very careful with it. Consider it as a not guaranteed situation. A lot of folks will come to us for electronic service through nexVortex or analog handoff. It does not use SIP trunking service. So we have those solutions. There's other on the market, but you got to be careful of it, Nate.
Okay, great. Well, we want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining today. Keep an eye out. We are having these every couple of weeks. We will be sending a recording of the session out as well that you may share with other folks within your organizations. And there's a couple of questions we didn't get to today that we'll follow up via email and make sure we get those answered. And don't hesitate to reach out to Mike directly. The email's there's on the slide if you have any additional questions. I want to thank again everyone for taking the time, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.